epiphanies or questions that came up during the 10 minutes you're like just dying to get answered right now? No? Okay. All right, so we're going to do a deep dive now into just all the different disciplines. But as we talk about this focus on the wildly important, let me kind of set the stage for exactly how important it is to get this right. And this is really what I call the leadership discipline. So I'm going to use a military analogy here, but then I'll quickly go into an organizational analogy. Is you know, what happened back on December 7th, 1941?
Big bomb.
Yeah. Pearl Harbor. Yeah, December 7th, Pearl Harbor. Mm-hmm. Okay, so all of a sudden, you know, the United States kind of finds itself unwittingly, you know, at war. Okay, but then what happened in 1944, in June?
Retaliation Day.
They were where? D-Day? D-Day. Where was D-Day? I mean, Japan attacked us.
The shores of Normandy.
Europe. Okay, so the decision-making process from being attacked by the Japanese December 7th, okay, to invading Europe, you know, intuitively it doesn't make sense. Why didn't we go attack the Japanese? Okay, well, it's a study on focusing on the wildly important. Okay, when all of a sudden we find ourselves in war, this war had been raging for quite a while. Okay, Japan had been slowly invading all throughout the Pacific. Okay, so Australia is threatened, Philippines are threatened. Okay, and you got, you know, the Nazis, of course, spreading east and west. Okay, across Europe, you got the Italians going down into with the help of the Nazis going down into Africa, and all of a sudden the United States like, oh my God, this is a big issue. We can't do it all. Okay, so as they started to look at all of this stuff, okay, politically, the world's like, you know, go attack Japan, go to the Pacific. Like, okay, if we do that, when we don't have resources to fight in Europe and in Africa. And so they had to ask the question, it was Roosevelt, Stalin, and Churchill. They had to ask the very, very difficult question. We can't do everything. What's the most important thing that we have to do? What's the one thing that if we don't do this, everything else doesn't matter? Okay, so their logic here was, okay, England at that point was the only country fighting, okay, in Europe still. And now what happens if England falls? The Germans no longer have a Western front. Now what can they do? They can turn their effort to the Eastern front, which is Russia. And where does Russia sit relative to Europe and Japan? Right in the middle of it. Okay, so now Japan and Germany can both focus on Russia. What's most likely going to happen to Russia? They're either going to surrender, they're going to join, okay, but they're going to lose here. All right. So we knew that we had, okay, to keep England in the war, because that gives us a foothold then to be able to get Germany. Okay, then eventually we're going to go get to Japan. What does that mean they had to do? Okay, what that meant for the Pacific is a strategic retreat, where you're fighting as you're going backwards. Now, do you think that meant that no one died? Tens of thousands of men lost their lives in the Pacific as they're retreating. How difficult do you think that decision was for those leaders to say what's really important is England? And we know that making this decision, we're going to lose tens of thousands of people in the Pacific. But if we don't do this, what would the implications be? So is it difficult? Is it difficult to focus? Yeah, it is. Okay, so as you're working with your teams, okay, you're working with your leaders, okay, if they don't get this right, if they're not able to focus, okay, and cut out a lot of different things, all right, and they're not going to get done. They're going to ask their people to do too much stuff, and they're going to be willing away the resources, and they're not going to be able to get it accomplished. So let's use an organizational example here, and forgive me if it's in the video, I forget. How many people think that Apple is an innovative company? They don't consider themselves innovative. They consider themselves focused. I mean, look right in front of me. I've got a Mac, I've got a phone, got an iPad, I even got my goofy little watch now. Hey, if I put their desktop on here, have I just now put everything that Apple makes on the table? That's focus.
Everything, yeah.
That's focus. Apple's a very, very focused organization, okay? And they can innovate around just a few things. Okay, so that's the principle, okay, of narrowing it down, okay, and giving some boundaries. So when we want to do the balance between go out and run and do a bunch of different stuff, okay, have the freedom, that's too much stuff, okay, but then having too narrow of views is also something we have to watch out for. So there's a really great study called the playground study. And it was a kindergarten. They brought a kindergarten teacher out with the same kindergarten class, but under two different conditions on the playground. Okay, so the first time they go out to the playground, there's no fence around the playground. Okay, and the kids are told to go play. How far do the kids go away from the teacher? Do they just go running off into the woods and
Probably not.
stay very close to the teacher? And they take the same kids out, same playground, they put a fence around it. Now what do the kids do? Oh, they're up there climbing the fence. Yeah, they're 50 yards away. Okay, so what does that mean about human beings? We need some focus. We need some structure. Okay, so there has to be a certain level of structure that we define the bounds. Okay, what are we going to focus on? What's our boundaries? Okay, but then once you're inside that boundary, let them go do their stuff. But if you don't have boundaries, it's too little. Okay, and so you put this in place. So that's really what the discipline one is all about. Let's find that fence. Okay, define the fence. Okay, narrowly focus on it. Okay, then let people do the work. Okay, so let's go into the videos now.
The first discipline is to focus on the wildly important. If a team has 2 to 3 goals, in addition to the whirlwind, they can usually get 2 to 3 done. When that same team attempts 4 to 10 goals, how many do you think they're going to get done now? Far fewer. They actually go backwards. This is the law of diminishing return, and it is as real as gravity. You can ignore it, but it won't ignore you. At 11 to 20 goals, you're not likely to accomplish anything in addition to the whirlwind. But 0 doesn't mean that the team isn't getting any results. The whirlwind is still running, right? 0 means the team isn't executing anything new. 0 means that leadership is kind of irrelevant. Now, while this is a simple enough idea, it's very difficult for most teams or organizations to adhere to. Here's why. Imagine those 11 to 20 goals for a second and ask yourself this. In your experience, are those 11 to 20 goals based on good ideas or bad ideas? They're almost always based on good ideas, and that's the problem. There will always be more good ideas than there is capacity to execute. Apple is known for being one of the most innovative companies in the world. That's not actually how they think of themselves. There's a great quote from Tim Cook to a group of shareholders back in 2008.
It's a spoiler
He
alert.
said,
Sorry.
"We are the most focused company that I know of or have read of or have any knowledge of. We say no to good ideas every day. We say no to great ideas in order to keep the amount of things we focus on very small in number so we can put enormous energy behind the ones we do choose." The table each of you are sitting at today, you could probably put every product on it Apple makes, yet Apple's revenues last year were $40 billion. There are 2 focus traps we want you to be aware of. Number 1, saying yes to all the good ideas, what we've been talking about. Number 2, turning everything in the whirlwind into a goal. We measure a lot of things in the whirlwind that are necessary to maintain the operation. But just because you can measure something doesn't mean it needs to be a goal for optimization. If we try and optimize every objective, every metric in the whirlwind, particularly if they require a change in behavior, we inevitably stall the organization. It's okay for the whirlwind to occupy 80% of an organization's energy. That's life support, after all. But don't let it take 100%. Give the other 20% to the thing that is going to make all the difference, the thing you are going to blow the doors off of. We call this a wildly important goal, or a WIG. Simply put, the 4 disciplines of execution are a treatment to achieve the wildly important goal. Once the WIG is achieved and becomes a natural part of the way the organization runs, the WIG can be retired back into the whirlwind. It is still being tracked, but doesn't require the full treatment of 4DX, and the team is free to choose another WIG. Here are 4 rules for thinking about your wildly important goal. have only one wig per person at the same time. The further you get into the disciplines, the more important you will realize this is. Your wig should only represent one aspect of your team's work, not the sum total of all activities. For instance, if you run a small business, you wouldn't want your wig to be profitability. If you run a sales team, you wouldn't want your wig to be total revenue. Because in both examples, the wig represents all of the work, including the activities in the whirlwind. Even though you are picking a single goal, you haven't actually narrowed your focus. Choose a wig that represents the most critical gap. In selecting a wig, don't just think about what's most important. Think also about what is most at risk for being accomplished. For instance, in the airline industry, nothing is more important than safety. But there's no gap in performance there. It's not at risk. They are, thankfully, great at this. We don't want them doing anything different, so safety would not be an ideal choice for a wildly important goal. When choosing your wig, think about where applying the treatment of 4 disciplines will have the biggest impact. Create a clear finish line for every wig, a single measure of success in the form of from X to Y by when, where X is the starting line, Y is the finish line, and when is the deadline. Think, where are we now, where do we need to be, and by when. Too often, goals are defined in general terms with a variety of measures that merely dilute accountability and clarity. In the 1950s, the struggling U.S. space program had the goal of leading the world in space exploration. And that was a fine goal, and there were lots of measures associated with it, but there was very little focus, clarity, or accountability. In 1961, John F. Kennedy said something a little different. He said, "We'll put a man on the moon by the end of the decade and return him safely home." When he stated that from X to Y by when, he created a line in the sand. Accountability went up, and interestingly enough, so did engagement. Now, we don't believe that engagement went up because accountability went up. We believe they both went up because there's a little switch in people's heads called game on. And whether Kennedy realized it or not, he threw the game on switch.
All right, so what are the two focus traps? What are the two traps for discipline 1?
Saying yes to everything.
Saying yes to everything. Okay, so we'll go back to the 2 examples I used of World War II. Were there a lot of good ideas there about what they should do? Again, politically, let's go attack Japan. There was a lot of good ideas about what they were supposed to do. Okay, they had to say no to a lot of good ideas. What Steve Jobs used to do, and I'm pretty sure Tim Cook used to do, that does the same thing, is he would get his executive team together for like their 2 or 3 day retreat someplace, and the executive team would come up with about 10 or 15 ideas, okay, for the year. Apple's a big company. 10 or 15 ideas sounds pretty good, right? They should be able to execute on that, shouldn't they? No. So Steve Jobs would stand up there with these 10 or 15 ideas, and as the leader, okay, he would cross out all but 1 or 2 of them. He'd say, okay, hey, thanks for all these wonderful ideas. Here's what we're going to focus on this year. So 1, the leader has the responsibility for ultimately deciding. They have the 51% vote, ultimately deciding where you're going. Okay, but then also saying, you know what, it's my responsibility to say no to these things, these other things. And I think that's going to be difficult for some of your leaders. Yeah. Okay, but you as coaches have to continually get these ideas across to them. You know what? It can't be 3 wigs. It can't be 4 wigs. I know that's you're playing the game here a little bit. Get down to 1 wig. Get down to one thing that's really important. Okay, what's the second trap? Making everything in the whirlwind a goal. Okay, that's what I call using the 4DX hammer and hitting everyone over the head with it. Like, hey, I got this great process. Go use this and get more stuff done. Okay, you go use this too and get more stuff done. Now you're getting people being more and more efficient about getting a bunch of stuff done that doesn't matter, quite frankly. But once you focus that organization and everyone's very narrowed in on one thing, you get this tremendous synergy, okay, around the group moving forward. Okay, so that's what we're trying to get to. All right, so what we're going to do is going to allow you guys to practice this, and the people online will be practicing it as well. Okay, is creating a wig. We'll break into 2 groups here, and the people online, okay, go ahead and just do this as a whole. Okay, is we're going to develop a wig. Okay, now to take you from, and Carol helped me trace the history here correctly. Okay, when we first started working with TSTC, okay, you'd always try to do 4 disciplines by yourself, okay, but it was really pretty laborious. It wasn't enough focus because you had your 4 board objectives, is that right? 3 board objectives, and they put 4DX around all 3. Okay, so we violated rule 1, okay, which is, and we're not, not making fun or anything. That's pretty common. Hey, we got this great system. Let's put it towards all these things. Okay, makes sense. Okay, but we right away said no. We need to focus on one side. Okay, and it became the vitality score. Okay, so very much great. That's something more narrow. Okay, let's focus on this vitality score. Okay, so we became, and what's the final numbers now for what we're trying to get to? It wasn't 5.0. We said 3.5 to 5.0 or something. Yeah. Yeah, but is 5 the maximum? Okay, so then it came to, okay, we're going to go from 3.5 to 5. And we said, well, wait a minute. Okay, 5's a perfect score. Are you ever going to get to 5? Probably. Where you're going. Okay, and then also that's about a 3 to 4 year goal. So now you say, let's say we want to get to a 3.9 in 3 years, or 4.5 in 3 years. Okay, wonderful. That's great leadership work. Now, for your people to be engaged, you got to figure out about 6 months to a year out. Do teams care about 2 or 3 years out? Can they focus on that when their whirlwind is right in front of them every single day? No, so you got to keep bringing it down to about a 6 to 12 month goal. Okay, even though as leadership can have a farther, stepping down to this, for your teams, your WIGs have to be about 6 to 12 months out. Because they can stay engaged there. Okay, they can say, great, I can see that ending line. I feel like I can win that game. Okay, and I can devote 10 to 15 to 20% of my time on that goal while I'm getting the whirlwind done. But if you keep the goal 2 to 3 years out, they're like, too far out, I got this whirlwind right in front of me. I'm going to take care of that right now. Okay, so that's what we're going to do here is around the vitality score. Okay, is I want you guys to develop a WIG. And here's the process of developing WIGs. And we'll go through Jim Healing here with how we brainstorm WIGs overall.
Now that you know how to narrow your focus to a wildly important goal and identify and test your ideas, you're ready to begin creating your team WIGs. This process begins with brainstorming. Brainstorming allows you to choose from a wider range of possibilities and to challenge each other's thinking. Your objective is simple. Create the longest list of WIG candidates that you possibly can. Don't settle for just a few. The more WIG ideas you have to choose from, the higher the quality of your final choice will be. One warning is really important. It's easy to kill your brainstorming session before it even gets started. We've all seen it done, and maybe we've done it ourselves. For example, when one person dominates the entire discussion, everyone else stops contributing. Or when someone criticizes an idea or says, that will never work, all the energy just drains right out of the discussion. Be sure to welcome all ideas. As soon as you have a robust list of candidates, evaluate each one. If your list is long, begin by sorting each idea into one of 3 categories. Category A for high-impact ideas, and Category C for low-impact ideas, and B for ideas that are somewhere in the middle. And by the way, don't struggle for precise categorization. The value of grouping is to quickly let you focus exclusively on ideas in the A category. Once you've evaluated each idea carefully, select the 2 or 3 candidates that represent the strongest possible WIG. Most teams require 30 to 45 minutes to complete the initial brainstorming, but isolating your top 2 or 3 candidates can take anywhere from 90 minutes to 2 hours, depending on the number of ideas you consider. Good luck and enjoy the process.
Okay, so first, as you start to work with your team leaders and your teams, I find it very important to review the ideas of brainstorming. And why is that? Have we heard this a million times? Yeah. what inevitably ends up happening the moment the team goes and starts brainstorming? Everyone does exactly what they're not supposed to do. You do. You dive down deep. You say, okay, well, that's an idea. Well, we tried that before, and what do you really mean by that? You get really into the details, saying, hey, great idea, put it down. Okay, and then one person will have a lot of different. I'm throwing out all the ideas, and everyone else just sits back and doesn't say anything. Okay, so it's very important when you start to work with your teams and team leads to review this. Okay, to go through. Let's have a discussion. Okay, about all the rules of brainstorming, just to have them very present in their mind as they start to go off into brainstorming. And if you want, there's, of course, there's all sorts of different ways to brainstorm. And I highly encourage you as you continue to go through this process. Okay, is use different techniques of brainstorming. There's team storming. There's where everyone writes their ideas down on yellow stickies, and then you go put them all up on a wall. So that way the introverts, okay, and the audience don't have to feel like I'm going to throw my idea out in the open. So you use yellow stickies, and then you can categorize. And so there's all different ways, okay, to try to generate ideas. The important part, okay, is you as a coach have got to make sure that you've got the rules out there and that you're trying to get really good ideas. Quantity is the key. Quantity is the key. Now, what ends up happening with most teams? After they get 5 ideas, what do? That's good enough. I got some ideas. Have they really started to get creative? No. So if you want to know Admiral McCraven, you should down here. Admiral McCraven. He's the Chancellor of UT, right? Chancellor of UT. Yeah. So he used to be in charge of SEAL Team 6. Okay. So I was actually working for him, and we were off doing a classified mission that we can't even tell you what it was. But what happened is we had this plan. We were launching off of a ship, and we came up with 3 plans. It took us like 3 days to come up with 3 plans. It takes a long time. Okay. And so we go brief, Evan McCraven on 3 plans, and he's a really neat guy, very quiet, man. And he listens to our plans. He goes, "That's good, but no." He goes, "No, those are just variations on a theme. You've basically given me 3 of the same plan. They're a little bit different, okay? But no, don't come back until you have 10 ideas." That's a lot of work. And we're like, what the? But what was so funny is we did go back and we kept coming up with ideas, and it was about idea 9 or 10 where all of a sudden we started to get kind of creative. And what we realized we were doing is we were limiting ourselves in our thinking. And so, for instance, the basic mission was we had to launch off a ship, and we had to go pick up a ruling family that we thought was going to be overthrown by a bunch of rebels. Problem is we didn't know how many people we were going to have to pick up. Okay, that was going to, and we didn't know who was going to be in charge of weapon systems or anything. The rebels take over, they could have all the defenses now. They could be trying to shoot us down. So we had no idea what our numbers were. So we were assuming we're pulling out 5 people, and we have to come all the way back to the ship. Well, eventually we started thinking, well, what if we have 10 people hop on or 20 people hop on? And so we kept saying, okay, well, we have 10 people hop on, and I don't remember numbers. Well, then we're going to have a tanker meet us. C-130 is going to have to meet us, outside bad guy territory. Well, we put 15 guys on, then we're going to have another type of C-130 come meet us in bad guy territory. Okay, we put 25 people on. What can we do then? Well, gosh, we could punch our tanks, which have 3,000 pounds of gas each, and that gives us enough gas to fly 15 minutes into a neutral country, and we can land there and get arrested, basically, and then have the United States diplomats get us back out, And so we went with Admiral McCraven with that plan. He goes, "That's it." So he's like, "Great," but it was only because he forced us to come up with at least 10 ideas that all of a sudden we really started saying, oh my gosh, that unfortunately never had to happen. But it was the creativity, the creative juices start flowing, okay, until you're about idea 9 or 10. Okay, so force your teams to keep coming up with ideas, even if they stop at 5, say this is all we come up with. Nope, come up with at least 10. So that's my personal technique. Okay, but definitely we want to try to see that. Okay, so what we're going to do here then is you're going to practice this. And again, all the people online practice the same thing. And we're not going to spend half an hour for it or anything. Okay, we're really creating a notional wig that you're going to work with now the rest of the day. So we'll divide strictly halfway down the table here. You're one team and you're another team. And if you guys can come just join in a team over here. Okay, and we're going to do 15 minutes. Okay, and I want you to brainstorm as many ideas as you possibly can about how to improve the vitality score, okay, inside of TSTC. Now, does anyone have any questions about what the vitality score is? You just have to have working knowledge of it. You don't have to, again, these are not, yeah.
Counting and reporting here. I have no idea what that is.
Carol, do you want to?
It's all data.
Okay. Our good one right now is what we're working on, which is to improve student success activity.
And in order to do that, there are 5 areas on the program vitality report, which goes to the instructors by the department. So one of them is increased enrollment. One is increased persistence. One is to increase the net contribution margin. One is to increase graduate salaries. And the 5th one is, I said enrollment.
No, found working.
Found work.
Students found working.
Students got work. So what the instructional teams did, they picked their area of greatest weakness. Like one team might be working on improve the persistence rate because they're losing students. Another one might be working on increasing their enrollment so they can get more students. But all 5 of those areas are going to improve their vitality score, and that's what which is going to lead to student success.
Yeah.
So that's not.
So for the sake of simplicity, let's narrow it down to 4. Okay, so your team, and don't spend a lot of time trying to figure out which one. Okay, you're not expect the experts on here. We just want you to come up with some ideas to create a wig. Okay, so let's work on increasing enrollment. Okay, increasing persistence, increasing the number of students found working. Okay, or increasing the average salary that those students will make after they graduate. Okay, so as a team, pick one of those things and then start to ideate. Okay, get at least 10 ideas. Okay, about how you can improve whatever it is you pick. Make sense? Okay, so again, split and go on different sides of the table. If you want to move over here, so you can break away from on the side, that's fine. And just 15 minutes. Okay, so just really quick. And again, not experts on this. You're just trying to come up with some ideas to get the process down.